Wolf. I'm one of the Haskayne Career Development Center's Career Development Specialists, and really excited to welcome you here today for one of our 4 Lunch and Learn series at Haskayne. Today we're thrilled to have MNP with us, and the topic we're going to cover is a little heavy, but very, very relevant to what's going on today with the world and all the new normal, so to speak. So we're going to be chatting about coping with the loss or deferral of a student summer job and why it's not personal. We also have Jillian, who's my colleague at the Haskayne Career Development team, who's going to be helping moderate the chat function, and we'll just go over some quick Zoom etiquettes. Perfect. All of you have been muted upon entry into the Zoom call today. If you are participating, you can unmute it, but otherwise we'll ask that you keep that mute on just to avoid any background noises that might disrupt the presentation. The chat function, so if you kind of hover near the bottom of your Zoom, there's the little chat box. Please feel free to drop in there any questions that you have throughout the presentation. We will address all the questions at the end, however, but if there's something that triggers a question, feel free to drop it in the chat feature. Or if you're having any technical difficulties later on when we're going to be using some breakout rooms, which is really exciting. And then finally, with Zoom, the beauty of connecting virtually is to see your lovely faces. So, don't be worried about what your background looks like. We're all in the same boat. If you are able to, we would definitely encourage you to put that camera function, the video on, so that we can feel like we're talking and engaging with a group and not just to a bunch of blank screens. Perfect.
Hi. Sorry, I just want to say, I think I have to quit and then rejoin for my camera to work. So
sure,
can I do
problem.
that?
Yeah, please go
sorry.
ahead. Sonia. Yeah, no worries at all. And then just a little heads up, later this week on Thursday will be our final Lunch and Learn for May. So PwC will be presenting, and the topic is how to succeed in your virtual job search. So if you haven't signed up for that one yet, please do so. And while we get started here, we did open this virtual Lunch and Learn to MRU and U of C. So we're going to launch a quick poll here just to get some stats to see who's from where. It's all anonymous, but please feel free to complete that poll. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Perfect. Okay. And I'll leave it open for a few more seconds, but if you want to go to the next slide, Nicole. And I will hand it over to Nicole from MNP.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chanel. So it looks like most of you are from U of Z with a couple of you from MRU. So that's awesome. Thank you guys all so much for joining us today. And thank you so much to Danielle and Jillian for welcoming MNP and including us on the Lunch and Learn series. We're super excited to be involved with this. So just a quick introduction. First of all, just sort of want to introduce myself and a little bit about MNP as well. My name is Nicole Pine. I'm going to be leading today's session. So I'm the Human Capital Coordinator at MNP, but we also actually have Jenna Shaw on the call today as well. She's the HC advisor for MNP Calgary. Likely many of you have met her before at recruiting events in the past if you've been to any of MNP's events before. So a little bit about me first. I've been with MNP for about 3 years. I'm actually brand new to Calgary as of February. I'm from Saskatchewan. I went to the Hill School of Business there. And so, yeah, definitely an interesting time to move cities in a new workplace and adapt a little bit, but really enjoyed Calgary so far. And you guys are very lucky to live here and have grown up here if you have. So in my role at MNP, I do all things HR, but do have a focus on campus recruitment. And so have been able to connect with lots of students in the last couple months. I think some of you have chatted with me around this call right now as well. So I'm excited to have this opportunity to connect with you again. And so MNP is really excited to address this topic today because as Danielle mentioned in the intro there, it can be a little bit heavy and it's a little bit sensitive and honestly a little bit taboo and can be a little bit tough to talk about. And so we think for all those reasons, it's really important to address it. And so we're really happy to partner with the Career Center on this and to kind of have this conversation today. And so, yeah, with that being said, many of you are likely familiar with MNP, but I know this was opened up to all business students within the faculty. So even if you're not in accounting and looking to pursue a career in accounting, you might not be as familiar with MNP. So just a little bit about us, first of all. So we are the 5th largest national accounting and tax and consulting firm within Canada. MNP's vision and values are the touchstone for every decision we make in the future, and this will kind of be intertwined and become important today as we discuss some of the things that we're going to go through. And just want to touch on my favorite MNP value as well, and so that is we run our business like a business with an entrepreneurial spirit that promotes a balanced lifestyle and commitment to the community. So there's lots to learn about kind of what MNP does and whatnot. I'm sure lots of you are familiar, but if not, we can kind of address that throughout. And so before we kind of get into the thick of things, since I am new to Calgary, I've heard about this ice cream rivalry that's going on in Calgary between 2 local ice cream shops. And so I believe one's Village Ice Cream and then Made by Marcus. And so I did want to ask you guys to kind of get the conversation going in the chat today. What is your favorite place to get ice cream in Calgary? If you can't tell, I'm a really big ice cream fan. I haven't tried either of them yet, so I'm unbiased. So let me know in the chat where your favorite place is to get ice cream in Calgary and why. And I'll just give you guys like a quick minute or 2 to write in there, and I'll be excited to kind of review all your responses later after the call. Thanks, Ryan. Ooh, lots of good tips. Thank you, guys. Okay, so before we kind of get into the content, we wanted to preface the conversation today with a stat. And so we're going to pull you again here quick. So how many jobs did the Canadian economy lose in March and April? And so I'll just have you guys answer that quick. All right, so it looks like we've got most of you responding, and it looks like lots of you are saying 1 million or 2 million. And so actually the answer is 3 million jobs. So the Canadian economy has lost 3 million jobs in March and April, which is more than the past 3 recessions combined. And so we want to use that as a preface for this conversation, which is really going to fall into today's theme, which is that you are not alone in what you're currently going through. So we've seen positions deferred by 1 month to 8 months. We've seen positions and student internships canceled altogether. So as you sort of think about kind of how this situation is affecting you and your story, it's so important to consider that this is so unprecedented. And so I know this word is getting like a little bit cringy because it's getting really overused and people are kind of like laughing at it when it's being used, but let's actually think about what that word means. It means that we haven't seen anything like this before, and not on the scale of the economically of how intense it is and how widespread. And so please remember that you're being joined by so many other individuals that are experiencing something very similar to what you're going through right now. And so as before we kind of hop into today's agenda, I did want to address as well and be transparent about MNP's position on this as well. So MNP did have to make some difficult decisions with our summer student contracts, and what we are discussing today is sort of based off of MNP's experience and our philosophy of how we were able to move forward through that. Other firms, we did hear from them as well, they had to make similar decisions. And so while some of the content we'll be discussing is sort of MNP stance and how we sort of handle things and view them, but many other firms were in the exact same position and would likely agree and follow suit with lots of the content we'll be discussing. So in terms of today's agenda, we are going to start off by sort of understanding the why. So how to unpack, how to cope with any of the disappointment, sort of looking at behind the scenes of what employers actually had to go through when making these sorts of decisions. Next, we're going to talk about maintaining your professional reputation. So building relationships with employers, and how to kind of actually stand out during this time. And then finally, we're going to talk about moving forward in a positive way. And so this is actually where we're going to do the breakout room as well, and kind of discuss strategies, anything that you're doing this summer to move forward professionally in a positive way. So some of you may have some extra and additional time on your hands at this point, and so what we're actually going to do during that time and how to move forward. All right, so to give me a little bit more context of who I'm speaking to today and the situations that you guys are currently going through, we're going to just do another quick poll. So we're really loving the polls today. Just sort of about your current situation. So remember that this is anonymous, and so you don't have to participate if you don't want to, but would love to hear this from you guys, just so we can get a little bit more context. So I'll just give you guys another couple seconds. So it looks like some of you are working as planned. Many of you have another situation going on, so maybe we can discuss that in the breakout room or after, or maybe you're facing something a little bit more unique. And some of you maybe had your offer rescinded, or were actually able to find other work. So we've got quite the mix, so that's perfect, because what we'll be discussing today, even if it doesn't directly apply to your situation, it's maybe something that a friend is going through, or family, or I think this topic can be really universal in how you might want to use the information. All right, so starting off here, understanding the why. So decision-making during an economic downturn in terms of a business sense. So while each business and industry is going to be different, there's a few things that MNP considered, and likely other professional services firms, around making decisions with student terms. So first of all, one thing to consider was onboarding and training. So many firms will have 2 to 3 week-long training programs that they've only ever delivered in person. So this training can be quite comprehensive and difficult. Often it's based off of a very specific program that is unique to that organization, and it has only ever been delivered in a classroom setting. So while in the future it's definitely plausible and possible that this training could be delivered virtually, and these employers are going to be planning for this as well right now, and they likely didn't have the time and resources to completely pivot and shift to a brand new online training program, if that makes sense. So they just maybe necessarily didn't have the time or resources to say, okay, how can we onboard our employees completely virtually? And so with that being said, that's an important aspect of this as well. But as well, we had to consider how comprehensive of a training program we could deliver virtually. So it's so important that employees are onboarded correctly and they feel like they have that really great onboarding and training experience, because that is what is going to set them up for success in the future and be able to increase their productivity. As well, during this time, we really wanted to focus on our current team members and staff. And so executing that type of training and that additional mentoring can take a lot of resources away from your current team. And so that was something we needed to consider, as well as likely many other organizations did. So next, looking at the impact on workflow. So questions that MNP or other firms might have been asking themselves is, could this affect our client base? Could we be losing clients because of this? Could our clients be cutting back on the services that we offer them? Are we able to keep our current team members busy and utilized? And then sort of when you zoom out and look at Alberta's economy, what sort of clients does MNP service, and who are our client base? And so that would primarily be small businesses, the energy sector. And so looking at how those organizations, those industries are going to be affected, in turn having an effect on MNP. And so, again, we need to look at the workflow of our current staff and ensuring that those people have enough on their plates and they're going to be fully utilized as well. So next, looking at the financial impact on the business. So MNP's value proposition to our clients is always going to be our people. We have, unique methodologies. Sometimes we have things that are proprietary to us, but at the end of the day, our talent is always going to be our biggest asset. And so all of you guys are in business school. I'm sure you know from Accounting 101 that salaries are a huge cost for a business to incur. And if you look at employment as a long-term commitment, giving someone a job offer is, it doesn't have an end date. Sometimes for, summer terms or contracts, it will, but in the future, we're always looking to bring those people back on for full time, right? And so it's a long-term commitment. It's a commitment to that salary. It's a commitment to the professional development we want to provide to that person. And it's an investment in that person, given that MNP's biggest asset is our people. And so to use an analogy in this situation, oftentimes we make decisions to step back and defer things when there's uncertainty. And so Jillian had brought up this great analogy about if you're thinking about it, if you're buying a house. And so say, you finish university, you're ready to buy your first house, you've done all the research, you found this perfect house in the Kensington area, and it's right by your favorite grocery store, and you've got everything perfectly set up, you've got your mortgage, you've got your family on board, you're ready to purchase the house. And then the pandemic hits. And so there's obviously going to be a lot of uncertainty at that time. So, you might not have employment in the near future. You might not be able to, spend as much time and investment within the house. So you might want to hold on to your savings at that time. And so what I'm assuming you would do is, take a step back and maybe not make that big decision right now, because you would be making a long-term commitment to the bank. So you would likely postpone that decision. I hope that sort of kind of explains a little bit how that financial impact could affect the business in terms of relating the salary to purchasing a house. And then lastly, the summer student experience. So when MNP brings on summer students, we really want that summer term to be an accurate representation of what it would be like to work full-time at MNP. And so we felt that it could potentially be doing a disservice to ourselves as well as the student and not be able to really protect the brand that we like to promote. And we really want to be able to deliver on that brand. And so just with that uncertainty around what that summer might actually look like, obviously no one would necessarily has the answers at this time. And so we just felt like that summer student experience could be really compromised. So just to wrap this up, overall, when MNP and honestly probably every firm brings people into their business, their number one goal is going to be to keep them within the firm. They want to develop them. They want to see them grow. And really, we felt like we needed to support and set up students for success. And just given everything that was happening, we didn't feel like we had the resources and were able to do so. And many organizations, this is what would have led them to defer or rescind an offer, is that they just didn't feel like they could set the students up for success. All right. So coping with the outcome. And so before we get into this, I'm actually going to have you guys go to the chat again. And so if you could write out just briefly some advice that you would give yourself or friends a couple months ago, say if they were faced with this situation. So if your friend or yourself had deferred, or their term was deferred, or they had their offer rescinded, what sort of advice would you give them? Just take 1 minute to think about that and write it in the chat if you feel comfortable. I see Nicholas has said, maintain your physical and mental health, stay fit, and reach out to your networks. Not the end of the world, and there'll be other opportunities. All right, I'll let you guys share that in there, and you guys can read everyone else's thoughts as well as we kind of go through. And so first of all, when we're talking about this, I think the number one thing is whatever you were feeling at that time or still currently feeling, your feelings are valid. So you could have been feeling extremely disappointed, feeling stuck or lost. You could have been planning on income that is no longer going to be there for you, which is increased your financial hardship. It has actually been studied quite a bit about the effects of job loss on people, and generally the results can be reduced self-esteem, loss of direction, feeling a little bit powerless, or even a loss of identity. And so even though you haven't even necessarily started at this organization yet, you could be identifying, and there's feelings of excitement, and it was something that you're looking forward to. And so it is totally okay to be feeling any of these emotions. And so we do want to note that there's never an easy time to lose employment, no matter the circumstance. But however, going back to today's theme of being that you're not alone, many other students are going through this at the same time. And while it is still going to be challenging, remember that you're not alone, and there are a significant amount of resources out there for you right now. So I think the first and most important thing to address here is actually prioritizing your health. And so I want to touch on that first. And so everyone deals with stress differently. Even emotional trauma can be a lot more present in some than others. Some of you might have took this very well and found something else to do with your summer right away. Others could still be kind of coping and dealing with this loss. And so important to note that both universities, University of Calgary and MRU, do have support systems within their student unions. So they have wellness centers through their university. And so I could not stress as much to utilize these resources. So they are free. They do have mental health supports, including counseling. And so if you do feel like you're having extreme mental health issues and need to reach out to these resources, those are in place for you. As well, anytime you can talk about it with someone that you trust, with friends or family, and really ensuring you're doing what is best for you at that time. As well as kind of works in with there, but identifying available resources. And so one thing I did want to note here as well, as many of you would have known, the financial support given from the federal government right now for students. So the Canadian Emergency Student Benefit, I'm sure some of you might have looked into it or accessed it already, but it is important to note that as well. And then so in terms of building resilience and remaining positive, so everyone's obviously in a unique situation right now, but some of you actually might be transitioning from high school to university and may have not necessarily experienced failure before, or any sort of even rejection, whether it's professional rejection in this situation. So I think moving forward, one thing that could be really important for you is to frame this situation as a tool that you're going to be able to use in your future. So while this can feel like a setback to you right now, it is still sort of on your path to success, to use that analogy. So in the grand scheme of things, in terms of your career, this could be a very, very small piece of what your career looks like. And so I do want you to ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How will this experience benefit me in the future? So for an example, if in the future you're in some sort of leadership position, and you maybe have to make a decision similar to this, you're going to have that tool in your toolkit where you're going to say, I've actually been through this before. I know what it feels like, and you're going to have that empathy and that emotional aspect to it as well. That's going to make you a better leader and make better decisions. And so we really want you to keep these things in mind while moving forward and sort of coping with the outcome and this potentially really disappointing news that you would have had received. All right, so then moving on to maintaining professional reputation. So it is important to remember that the decision to rescind an offer or delay a start date, that would have been an incredibly difficult decision for any employer. Employers are really invested in their talent, and they're often very, very excited for them to begin work. And so it's important to see this as an opportunity for you to showcase your integrity, showcase your professional attitude. So while responding negatively can have really adverse effects on your employer's impression of you, responding positively on the opposite end of the spectrum can help build rapport with your employer and or soon to be professional employer. So if there's no necessarily opportunity for you to work with that employer in the future, consider that your relationship could be really important with future opportunities. So you could come across that employer, whether it's through volunteer work or if you're on a board with someone, or it could be a potential referral source later on in your career. So Generally keeping a professional, strong reputation is important in so many aspects. And so 3 things we want to touch on here was confidentiality. So keeping conversations that are between yourself and your employer confidential. So of course you're going to share necessary details with the necessary people, but really keeping in mind that that conversation is meant to be between you and your employer based on that specific situation. And so knowing when and when not, when it's appropriate and when not to share any details is really important. As well as managing your online presence. And so it's really important to do this. We are all so connected online, and it's important to note that employers do monitor forums, they monitor review sites, they have access to everything online that you have access to. And so there are people behind those screens as well, and they do monitor those things as well. So even if you are, posting something anonymously online, sometimes it actually is quite easy to tie it back to a person, even if it is anonymous, given the context and whatnot. So while it can be easy to share your feelings and thoughts and emotions over an online forum, it would be better to take that to a friend or family or somewhere more private that's not going to be necessarily tied to your name or tied to a specific situation. And then lastly as well, utilizing the opportunity. So I think that situations like this are really great opportunities for students to be memorable. So showcasing your ability to be adaptable, to practice empathy. Employers will remember students that handle this really well, and that they're still, excited to potentially bring them on with that employer in the future, or they're able to make an impression through something that is a really unfortunate situation. All right. So I think before we get to the last part here, where we talk about kind of moving forward and any strategies you have for this summer, and looking at kind of what the next couple months might look like, we are going to do a quick break. Something that is going to be really intertwined in our lives moving forward. So with that being said, though, if you are in the position to do so, meaning you don't have certain obstacles in your life, such as financial obstacles, family, health-wise, in pursuing, alternative ways to spend your time right now, if, those obstacles aren't present, here are some things that you could potentially do moving forward. So first of all, continue your studies. So if you have room in your degree and your academic advisor recommends, or you have that conversation with them, continuing your studies would be a really great way to spend your summer. So I believe U of C has summer courses that would be like July and August that you could potentially register in as well. Even if it's not through your actual, post-secondary institution, it sounded like lots of students are taking on sort of different courses or free courses online as well, in way to kind of build a skill in that way as well. I brought up in our breakout room Coursera, which is an online learning platform as well, and they're offering a ton of free courses as well. I'm not sure about you guys, but that course by Laurie Santos, I believe her name is, through Yale University, that's been offered about improving your well-being, that's become super popular. That one has been like foundational during this time to kind of help even me through kind of learning and how to kind of get through this as well. So first of all, yeah, continuing your studies would be a great first option to look at, as well as volunteering. And so chatting with Danielle about this week, actually, the U of C Student Union is putting on sort of like a grocery delivery program. I'm sure the information is online and easily accessible, but Danielle could send it to you as well, where students are volunteering by helping deliver groceries. I think it's for vulnerable groups as well. I also wanted to bring up something that's happening in my home province through our student group Enactus. So Enactus, I'm sure it's a global organization, so both of your universities would have the program as well. And some of you may or may not be involved in it, but Regina, University of Regina had put on, their Enactus group had started this initiative called Sask Masks. And so what it is the Enactus group, essentially they, develop some resources. I believe one of the professors actually donated their startup funds and they've created almost like this enterprise within a couple of weeks where they are sending and delivering masks throughout Saskatchewan for a cost that's then being donated to some charities within the province. And so it's become really successful. I think they've donated over $30,000 already, and so that's within about a month. And so these students kind of took that opportunity to see, hey, this is where I can help, and this is, you know, where I could volunteer my time right now, and it's become really, really successful. So yeah, I wanted to bring that up as an example as well. And then looking at alternative work. So some of you mentioned that you have found some alternative work, but Jenna would agree with me on this, and that one of the pieces of advice we often give to students is to ensuring that they're working while they're in school. And so even if it's not professional work, if it's in the service industry, in the hospitality industry, these are very essential skills to working in accounting, believe it or not. They help with your communication, they help with your teamwork, they help you give better service to clients. It shows your initiative, it shows your drive, it shows you to your ability to manage multiple priorities if you're working while in school. So whether that's working at a grocery store, working at a restaurant, if you know those options don't work, looking for any sort of alternative work during this time could be a really great way for you to build skill. And then lastly, if none of these options work for you, look at mastering a hobby or developing yourself personally as well. So any type of skill building could be really beneficial during this time. So focus on something that interests you that you might not have had the time to develop otherwise. We heard about, you know, people hiking more or practicing their instrument that they used to play a lot. I know personally, my brother-in-law is a pilot right now, and so he works for Air Canada, and so he is not, of course, working as much during this time. And so he actually, you know, decided he was going to buy a piano and learn to play the piano at 27 years old. And so that's been really enjoyable to watch. But it's really, you know, focused his time and energy into learning something, and it's going to serve him well in a lot of different ways. So yeah, and then just to wrap this up as well, we think it's really important to remember to only do what you can and what you're able to do. So many of you have likely seen that there's this online kind of conversation that keeps coming up on social media about you know, hustling during this time, or, you know, maintaining and just, you know, doing what's best for you. And so it's really important to just really stick to doing what you can do and what you're able to do during this time. And if you know yourself best, so if you do need advice, you know, going to your resources, family or friends, or seeking professional help as well. All right, so I think we're about at 12:53, so we do have some time for questions. If you guys want to throw them in the chat, or I think that would probably work best if you want to put them in the chat, and then Danielle or could monitor and bring them up.
Yeah, or if you want to do a reaction, if you want to throw a thumbs up, we'll know you have a question, and then you can ask it through the video as well.
Yeah.
Don't be shy. If you're wondering something, guaranteed someone else on this call probably has the same question. It's also a great way to stand out when you're networking with professionals, is to ask a really thoughtful question. Oh, okay, Supan, we have a question over there.
Yes, I was just wondering, going forward, because I know firms usually have like projected numbers on how many people they're going to take on for like full-time jobs and of course internships. So like has this impacted how many people like MNP is going to be hiring in the fall, let's say this year, or well, we probably have people for fall, but January next year or September the following year? Like, have you changed the projections, or are you still going forward with the numbers that you had before, and that's how it is?
For sure, yeah, that's a really great question. I would say that we don't necessarily have a strong enough idea to give you, you know, a solid answer on that. I'm not sure, Jenna, would you have anything else to add there?
Yeah, so I do think that our targets will likely lessen a little bit, just because this is impacting the economy, it's impacting our clients directly. But like Nicole said, it's an ever-evolving situation. We're monitoring this as closely as possible. So I think the biggest thing though is like any firm, and I know some people here are not in accounting, but specifically accounting firms, we are always looking to have that talent coming in from universities. So we're definitely going to continue recruiting. I can't imagine that it's really going to affect our numbers substantially, but I do know likely we will be more modest in our approach for this campus. Again, that's more so MNP. We are a mid-sized accounting firm, and we do have a lot of small businesses, and I do think that COVID really is affecting small businesses the most. So we're going to have to monitor over the next couple of months, but it will likely, change our targets a little bit. Yeah.
And I'll chime in here as well. Just the nature of my work, I do interact with a lot of employers, specifically with the accounting concentration and others. But specifically for accounting, you probably noticed there's way less employers participating in the traditional spring recruitment. Mm-hmm. So in the fall, so kind of in September, we anticipate fall recruitment will proceed. So there'll be a lot of postings, and those will be for 2021 positions, whether those are January starts, May starts, September starts, and there's always usually mix of co-ops, summer internships, and full-time employment as well. So keep an eye for that. If you're at UC, make sure you're checking the events calendar, gearing up kind of mid to end August. You'll see a lot of accounting specific events. And then over the summer, we'll look at putting more things like these lunch and learns or virtual networking. So keep an eye out for those. And then I saw a thumbs up. I think Alexandra had hers first, and then Glenn.
Hi, I just really enjoyed the presentation. So thank you for all the supportive and helpful advice during these times. I wanted to ask MNP if there's going to be more virtual one-on-one meetings, because I remember really appreciating that, and I'm actually one of the people who are enjoying virtual networking. So I just wanted to ask if there's going to be any more in the future.
Oh, that's a really good question and good to hear. Our applications had actually just closed on Friday for spring recruitment. But MNP will be participating in fall recruitment as well. So we definitely hope to do more virtual networking, whether it's kind of on a larger scale, where we'll get to host sort of more virtual event type styles, or do the one-on-ones as well. We definitely will look at doing more of that, as Danielle said, in that kind of August time frame and September as well. So yeah. And then Danielle, did we have
Glenn had one, and then Mason will go with you after. Go ahead, Glenn.
So I have a class at 1 o'clock, and so just before I run, I just wanted to say thanks to Nicole and Jenna and Danielle and Jillian. This was really great to connect and to learn a little bit more here. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Glenn.
Have a great day.
Mason, you're up.
Thanks for doing this. I just wanted to ask about, because you said, or it was mentioned volunteering. And I just wanted to know if there was a resource or a place that you've volunteered before that really helped you out in your career.
Oh, that's a really great question. Yeah, actually, so really unrelated to tying into my career, I actually started doing mentorship within the last year through a program similar to Big Sisters or Big Brothers. And so, it was something very out of typical volunteering that you would do in a business setting. And it really helped me develop a certain skill set that I wouldn't have found otherwise. And I actually do think that those programs are still running right now, and they're still kind of bringing in applicants. And so I would definitely suggest looking at those as well. It can be, actually a pretty minimal time commitment of doing it about an hour to a week, and you can really, get to know and work with the youth and spend a lot of time investing in them, and it can be really beneficial for really any sort of skill. You got to do a lot of problem solving lots of time working with a youth that closely one-on-one. And so, yeah, that's a really great question, Mason. And I would definitely suggest you guys looking into how maybe volunteer programs have sort of shifted their approach right now and still are able to offer what they would typically do, but maybe just in a virtual setting or something socially distanced.
Cool.
Great. Thank you. I think, Andrew, you had a thumbs up. Did you have a question?
Yeah, just real quick here. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate the presentation and all this, and the opportunity to get to meet you guys. Just real quick, going into it, let's say you're hired in as a CPA candidate student into audit, and then you go through and you write your CV and all that, and then you pass. I just want to know what MNP's opportunities are past that when you get your CPA designation. If you have the opportunity to specialize, like go into like US tax or international tax or something like that, and how you guys handle that with CPA people who have passed their CPA exam after that.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Andrew. Maybe Jenna, you would be able to speak more to what that might look in Calgary. I have a pretty good idea of what it looks like in Regina and Saskatchewan, but Calgary has a lot of unique opportunities and are a little bit bigger here. So maybe Jenna, if you want to speak to that.
Sure, yeah. So we actually have quite a few paths for the CPA now in Calgary. So if you wanted to go through the traditional audit path and do that and explore elsewhere after that, you could do that. But we also have a path in our US tax group. We have a path in our enterprise risk services, tax, and audit. So even if you know kind of what you want to do from the get-go, we have a lot of options that way. But we do have a lot of people that kind of do the traditional assurance route, because you do get a lot of great skills through that route. And like you said, Andrew, you can really branch out into pretty much anything after you have your designation. You can specialize more in tax, or you can go into our advisory or consulting practice, which is growing as well. Because once you get your CPA, you have such a good skill set. But MNP absolutely supports you trying out things internally and finding something that's really right for you. And then we have a lot of people that too just really enjoy staying in the audit path as well, and maybe finding their specific niche within their audit practice. So maybe it's working with a certain client group, or maybe it's working in a certain industry or something like that. So definitely once you get your CPA, kind of the world is your oyster, specifically at MNP for sure. Somewhat similar to Regina, Nicole?
For sure, yeah. I think the support is definitely there, and we really encourage those conversations actually. So before, like during, while you're getting your CPA, as well as after, you'll have your performance coach asking you like, what do you want to do? What kind of clients do you want to work with? What makes you excited about accounting? What sort of, asking what your path might look like. I would say there's definitely space for that at MNP to have those conversations.
Great, thank you so much. We're just over 1 o'clock, so we'll take one last question if there is any. Going once, going twice. Oh,
actually,
okay, Nicholas, please go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to quickly confirm something. So you mentioned earlier that MNP closed its spring recruitment last Friday, and then that there would still be networking opportunities in the fall. Does that also mean that there will be more potential like post-grad positions posted in August or September?
Yeah, for sure. So MNP will participate in fall recruiting as well. So while we are looking, we're doing spring recruiting right now, we'll likely continue to do recruiting into the fall as well. So those positions will likely be up again in August.
Okay, cool.
Great. And then I think, Supan, you had your thumbs up for the very last question.
Yes, I just wanted to find out more about like the hiring process and what the steps are. So does it like start with a virtual interview? Is it more, well, it's probably going to be virtual now, but in general, is it like in-person interviews that you guys do?
So yeah, so in terms of spring recruitment, we will be doing everything virtually. So yeah, your typical process, we're actually going to be doing some video introductions as well. So that'll sort of be like a first round, but we'll have candidates submit a short video. And then from there, we'll be doing interviews with our human capital group, as well as partners or managers within MNP as well. And then moving forward from there, that's kind of quick overview of what the process will look like.
Awesome, thank you.
Perfect. And Nicole, I know the presentation on that last slide, there was your contact info and MNP. Do you want to share that just before we wrap things up?
Yeah, for sure. So if you guys want to keep connected with MNP, you can for sure add myself and Jenna on LinkedIn. You can just search our names there. We're pretty easy to find. You can follow up with me over email as well. Anytime really, and then we encourage you to follow MNP on our social challenges or social channels as well. And so typically our handle is going to be at MNP LLP if you want to follow along. I know right now we're kind of featuring lots of our employees and their work from home situations, and so some of them are pretty fun about what they're up to and whatnot. So yeah, thank you guys so much for your participation. I really enjoyed discussing this topic with you, and your openness to chat about it was really great. And thank you again to Danielle and the U of C for hosting us and getting us involved with this.
Nicole, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't see your screen.
Oh shoot.
Maybe
I wonder. Oh, I bet it stopped sharing after our. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it did. Here you guys go.
Awesome.
Perfect. And with that, we'll conclude today's Lunch and Learn. Thanks to MNP for a really fantastic presentation on, not the easiest topic, but definitely very timely and meaningful. And thank you to every student who joined us today. You're the reason for everything that we do, and we want to support you. So hopefully you got a lot out of today's session. Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, guys.